Hey folks, welcome to the Sidewalk Congress, where your hosts Hal and Aaron delve into the pulse of current politics and news from a thoughtful, conservative perspective. We're here to break down the latest news headlines that you may have missed and explore the nuances of politics and policy, all while engaging in lively debates and discussions. Make sure you never miss an episode by following us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram for updates about what we have going on. And if you want to follow Hal Walker, you can find him on X, and his handle is @RealHalWalker. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Let's dive into today's discussion. Hey folks, it is August the 16th, 2024, and it's a hot day down here in the South. But coming to you today is Hal Walker and Aaron Luck, along with the Sidewalk Congress. We're here to talk to you about things that are affecting our life today throughout the United States, conservative politics, and Kamala Harris, she's come out with a new financial plan that you'll find is more communist than exciting. We're going to talk a little bit about her vice president pick. We may talk a little bit about J.D. Vance and, of course, Donald Trump in the campaign. So, Aaron Luck, how are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing just fine, Hal. It's like you said, it's mighty hot out, and so it is. We are in the midst of summer, and it's going to hopefully be cooling off here soon. And I know you've had a lot going on in your life lately, Hal, and we've been all thinking of you, and just wanted to let you know that.
Well, we appreciate that, Aaron, and yeah, we've had a little bit of tragedy in the Walker family this couple weeks now, but we're going to make it. We're going to survive with God's help. We are in good hands. So thank everybody for their kind thoughts and prayers. We're going to make it through all this. So thank you, Aaron. So probably beginning on the subject of Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's VP choice. What do you think about this guy?
I think not much of him. I think that he is a little bit too excited for me, I guess would be the right word, a little bit too energetic for me. He comes across to me as a little bit phony with a lot of bad ideas. I was honestly taken aback and shocked at the fact that he was picked. I really thought it was going to be Shapiro from Pennsylvania. But, it's definitely renewed excitement in the Democratic Party for them. And it's, I think there's a legitimate concern that they are right now gaining some momentum and hopefully that will wane and go back to where it should be. But I think at the end of the day, for whatever reason, it worked, Hal. I think it worked for him.
Well, I might have to disagree with you on that one. I like you think that there was definitely better candidates out there for her. You think about Minnesota, and I think it's been probably since maybe the election that brought in Abraham Lincoln, since Minnesota voted for the GOP. So to me, that state was a given for the lefties. They were going to win Minnesota. There may be some House seats or Senate seats in there that are up for grabs. But for me, the picking of Tim Walz as a VP candidate, I just don't see it. Again, I think Shapiro in North Carolina was a better pick. I think he's the guy that would have solidified that state. It's not North Carolina; it's Pennsylvania. I'm corrected.
Right.
It is Pennsylvania. So I think that would have possibly solidified that state. And that state right now is teetering between the GOP and the Dems, and it could very well be the state that decides the outcome on the elections. But when you look at Tim Walz, he's a nut. He's crazy. And it's funny, if you go out on social media, he's got a lot of things where he's talking about his opposition and J.D. Vance as being weird. Well, yeah. Who's weirder than the guy that wants tampon machines in the boys' bathroom? who's weirder than the guy that served, 16 years in the National Guard and up and quit right when they were deploying to go do what they're supposed to do. Not sit around 1 weekend a month and bring in a paycheck. But when it was time for him to actually go play soldier, he stepped out on everybody.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think that you're right about Pennsylvania. And I think that just goes to show you where they actually stand with regard to the Jewish community. I think they really felt that pick, although it would have been a much wiser pick, in my opinion, just like you have stated, I think they just felt that it would alienate a lot of their, quote, base, because he's Jewish. And that's an unfortunate reality, but it appears, at least the way I observe it, to be true. I just think that's a problem.
Well, and I agree, but it looks like the people that are running the Democratic Party right now are definitely pro-Hamas. They're anti-Jewish, and I believe because of that, they just couldn't take Shapiro. They couldn't take him as the backup to Kamala Harris in that Democratic side of this upcoming election. And it's just crazy when you look at all that. Israel is still fighting for everything that they believe in, and that's their free state, and to live free and without harassment from all the Muslim nations that surround them. But I saw an article today where the federal court had to step in because the University of Southern California, which we all know to be very liberal because they're sitting there in Los Angeles, were allowing anti-Israeli groups to stop Jewish students from passing through certain areas of campus. And that was crazy that it had to go to the federal court to address those issues, and that the group that runs UCLA was unwilling to step in and say, hey, everyone's got a right to be here on this campus and pursue an education and do so freely without harassment. But they weren't able to do so, or wasn't willing to do so. So the federal government, through that federal court out in California, did step in and change that. So Tim Walz, you said he's a little animated, a little goofy. Is there anything else about him that you're not thrilled with, Aaron?
Well, obviously, I mean, I have a problem with let me say this. I don't have a problem if you're a grown up and you want to dress up like a woman. Okay, that's none of my business. It's none of my concern. I do think that there's more and more research out there that is coming to the forefront, especially from a lot of these European nations that are far more liberal than us. And I think that evidence is starting to show that this quote unquote treatment for these youngsters who are maybe confused as to what they are or who they are, which I don't think is uncommon for any young person. But I think there's a lot more studies out there tending to show that, this is worse for the young man or woman than it is good. And I think that his stance on that, history is going to show has not been a good one. And I just hope it comes around quicker rather than later, because I think there's a lot of young folks and families being torn apart. I can't imagine if I had a child that was confused like that and I was trying to help them and refused to allow them to take hormones or have some kind of crazy surgery, that the government would simply step in and take them from me. I just don't really understand that. And it's kind of concerning to me, because regardless, I think, of what they say right now on the campaign trail, I have no doubt that if this were to come to pass where they're the president and vice president, I think it would become some kind of, who knows what. I mean, it could be an executive order from them. I don't know. And, that's one thing, and tampons in the boys' bathroom, just it's just silly as it sounds. Especially when you're talking about young people that don't even menstruate if you're a young lady. I mean, I just really don't get it. And I guess if we're going to get to this point, then we just need to take the signs off the doors, and in every building, instead of having a men's and a women's bathroom, just have about 16 individual bathrooms where everybody can just have their own. I mean, I don't know how. I've told you before, I'm very confused as to where we're headed, and even more concerned about as to where we're going.
It's kind of funny when you look at these things, though, Aaron, because a lot of the things that Kamala Harris and Tampon Tim are proposing almost feel communist in nature. But when you look at communist regimes, they typically get rid of the people that aren't fairly sound on their sexuality. They're known to kill homosexuals and ban them and get rid of them. Yet we've got people that it's like they're fighting from both positions. And I'm not sure what that's going to look like. But one thing that really concerns me about Tim is he's had a long-standing relationship with China, even as a governor in Minnesota. And I don't know what that means for the future, but he lived there in the past. He taught English there in the past, and I think it goes a little bit above and beyond that. And also, if you look at his record as a governor there in Minnesota, there was a particular imam who, as you know, is like a pastor type within the Muslim faith, that he gave vast sums of government money to. And I'm not sure if it was to secure votes or what, but just the closeness that he has with the people that, for the most part, are given Jews and Christians their greatest concerns, kind of rubs me wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that are confusing, as you've said. You have almost complete diverse points of view on the left that don't even jive together. Like you said, you've got homosexuals for Hamas. I mean, that makes no sense, not in any way, shape, or form. You have, this, and you're right. I mean, it's almost a communistic agenda whereby, I heard something the other day where they were advocating for price controls on groceries and price controls on things of this nature. And price controls have never worked anywhere. I mean, the next thing you have after price controls is you have bread lines. And that to me is kind of, unfortunately, where it seems like we're headed. I just don't really get it.
Well, Kamala Harris came out today with her agenda. She's been in hiding. She's been pulling a Joe 2.0, where she's not going to be on TV other than away from a distance, and she's not going to do any one-on-one interviews. If you remember when Joe was running years ago, they joked around, he was hiding in his mom's basement or something. But, the unfortunate thing is they were successful with that. So, maybe they know what they're doing in terms of keeping Kamala Harris a little bit further away from the microphone. But so today or yesterday, she finally comes out with this financial policy agenda. And, as you said, it's got a lot of price control type things in it. And, that does create things like bread lines and things like that. But, if you're a manufacturer and, it takes you $40 to make a widget, and the government comes in and says, you got to sell it for $40, well, suddenly they're not making any profit. Profit pays employees, profit pays taxes, profit pays for growth and, expansion, things like that. And if the government's going to control pricing and you're not going to be able to make the profit you're accustomed to, you're going to do one or two things. You're going to quit making it, or you're going to make an inferior product. You're going to spend less money making that product, so it's not going to be as good as it was. And, that's just, a widget type product, something that you could use. But like you gave as an example, bread, imagine farmers being told you can't do it for more than this. Where do they cut costs at?
Yeah.
So just that is a great concern.
Well, it is. And when you go right down to the nuts and bolts of it, energy drives everything. As the gas prices go, typically goes the price of everything else. Everything that you see at Walmart does not magically appear there or is not being made in the back of Walmart. It's getting there on a truck from literally all over the world. And so, like you've said, if that price is stuck in a high position, well, by necessity, everything else is. And then you got to go back to the plants where all this stuff is made. It doesn't matter if it's a loaf of bread, a widget, they need power. And if power costs more money, then the cost of production costs more money. Then you have employees that can't barely make ends meet because apartments are up 40%, groceries are up 50%, gas is up 50%. They need more money to survive, and so your costs go up there. Then you get the government, threatening to tax you even more. So I don't know. I just feel like we've got to get a handle on this. And I'll never say that, this is the most important election in the history of mankind, or, democracy's dead if the Democrats win. But I will say this. I think that our country is going to be unrecognizable from when you and I were in high school in the 80s. And college in the 90s. I think it's going to be a very, very, very different place.
Oh, I would agree. I think, I posted on my X account earlier today that if the Democrats are successful in this election campaign, that the United States might very well look like a northern and larger Cuba, based upon some of their thoughts. But, I've been able to go out and find some of these clips that we've shared before, and I've got a pretty good clip on inflation from Kamala Harris. So this is her understanding of inflation, and maybe this is what led her to come up with this brilliant policy of hers. So let's give this a listen.
Bread costs more, that gas costs more. And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up. That's about having to stress and stretch limited resources. That's about a source of stress for families that is not only economic, but is on a daily level, something that is a heavy weight to carry.
Well, that was definitely scripted because it's above her IQ level. But, what they're looking at in terms of, working on the pricing and everything, it's not the pricing that the problem is. It's the inflation. It's the Federal Reserve pumping all this fake money into the economy. It makes things worth nothing. But, you also talked a minute about energy, and energy is a big deal. And, back when President Trump was in office and we were exporting oil, we were one of the largest oil exporters in the world. We kind of took over from Saudi Arabia and the OPEC group. And it's my understanding that they have found some new locations where, they could pump oil for lifetimes and lifetimes and still not use it all up. So listen to what Kamala has to say about energy.
And starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, that we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. Yeah. So thank you.
So would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes. And I've, again, worked on that.
So that cackle, that almost sounds like a witch. We're a few months out from Halloween, but, banning fracking, banning offshore drilling. I don't know what she's going to do. Maybe she can get Tampon Tim to call his friends over in China and get the kids over there to produce car batteries a little faster, since she wants everything to be electronic and not run off of oil or gas anymore.
Yeah. And here's my thing on that. I absolutely do believe that at some point in the future, we could possibly do away with almost all oil and gas energy. I think it is a possibility. But the problem is it's not today. There's nothing wrong with setting goals, realistic goals, to say that by, in the next 50 to 75 years, we're going to try to cut back this much. But you can't just basically try to do something in 2 or 3 or 10 years. It's just not possible. And until we can get to that point, which again, I'm not against that point. I can foresee a day, Hal, where charging a car is going to be no different in time as to filling up a gas tank. I can foresee a future where that is going to happen. But the problem is that's the future. We've got to worry about the present while we try to set goals for the future. And right now, whether people like it, hate it, despise it, want to sit down in a road and block traffic over it, we need gasoline and oil to run. Those are the facts. And if we have the means to get that gasoline and that oil, then we need to be doing it with an eye on trying to improve things in the future.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I mean, I like you, grew up watching George Jetson on the cartoons, and those look to be great days, but we're not there yet. And we don't need to put aside the resources that we have available today for products that are not similar in quality or cost. A lot of things need to be done before those days. Right now they have a problem getting those batteries charged. Who wants to sit on the side of the road at a Walmart for 2 hours while their battery's charging? Then just the resources it takes to make these batteries, the heat that they produce, the weight of them. They're talking about trying to make semis run off of these batteries. Well, that would just about triple the weight of the truck before the load. It's just not possible with the technology that we have in place today. So, don't cut your nose off in spite of your face. Continue doing the things that work while you're working on these other things in the background. I think that's the philosophy we need to have going forward when it comes to energy use.
I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. I think that's exactly what I said, is that I'm not adverse to, heck, how if I didn't need a truck so much, I may consider buying an electric car just to go back and forth to work if they were reasonably priced. I don't have an issue with that. The issue I have is that, when I'm going to drive from here to visit relatives in Wisconsin, it's a lot more convenient for me to pull over and take 15 minutes to go to the bathroom and fill up the truck than it is for me to fight with someone over the last charger at the Tesla bank. And I remember when I was up in Birmingham, I had to be up there for a week on some stuff, and I was staying at a hotel, and they had 2 chargers at that hotel for electric vehicles. And you had people that would have to set their alarms to go move their vehicle so that the person waiting could put their vehicle in so that they could both leave in the morning. It's just, we're not there, and we need to quit pretending like we are. I mean, we could get my brother on here one day and he could explain it to you since he's in the electrical business, and they're running wires in California. I mean, I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that go nowhere and start nowhere. They're just running wire. It's not like they're starting at a dam and running it to a city. They're just blindly running wire in hopes that someday there's going to be somewhere to hook those wires up to magically make everything work. It's just insane.
Yeah, that's amazing. But, you know, when you have government involved and there's budgets, I know this from working at a state agency at one point. If you've got a budget that you don't spend, next year you don't get as much. So I'm imagining there's a lot of California agencies spending away, hoping for better days, knowing if we don't spend it today, next year, they're going to come in and cut us and we're not going to have it to spend. Now, you know, switching gears on Kamala and her people, the other thing that gives me great grief, you know, we talked about Tim and his contacts in China and things like that, is, you know, the Dems are doing everything they can to get the votes out, and, you know, ballots equal votes, and, you know, that's what gets you elected. Here's Kamala again talking about voter IDs and undocumented people. She refused to call them illegal immigrants. Listen up.
The voter ID, one of those compromises that you support?
I don't think that we should underestimate what that could mean. Because in some people's mind, that means, well, you're going to have to Xerox or photocopy your ID to send it in to prove you are who you are. Well, there are a whole lot of people, especially people who live in rural communities, who don't, there's no Kinko's, there's no Office Max near them. People have to understand that when we're talking about voter ID laws, be clear about who you have in mind and what would be required of them to prove who they are. Of course, people have to prove who they are, but not in a way that makes it almost impossible.
So, Aaron,
Well,
when you turned 15 years old, probably on your birthday, your mom or dad carried you to that special place where you took an exam where you told them you were competent to learn to drive. And either at that point or when you turned 16, you received a photo ID. Is that correct?
I did.
So maybe it's really not that tough, Kamala, to have a photo ID handy. Yeah, I know there's a few places throughout the United States where it's just so urban that maybe you don't have a car, maybe you never learned to drive a car. But I think for about the other 90% of the United States, you know, a 16-year-old rite of passage is going to get that driver's license and getting your picture taken. So I don't think it's really that hard to show when you walk in and sign your name on that line next to your name, the way it's typed out, an ID that says, I am that person. I get checked for that every time I vote. And I don't know why it's me, but, you know, it's the people behind me. It's the people in front of me. I don't know why it's such a big deal and so hard to do.
Well, first off, it's not hard to do. Second off, it's a big deal because you cut out a lot of fraudulent votes. And that's not what they want. So that's why it's a big deal. I mean, it's absolutely preposterous and disingenuous to say that there are people out there without ID cards. I would venture to say that it's less than, I'd say 1% of the population over the age of, well, let's just talk about voting age. Over the age of 18 doesn't have a photo ID. That just, it's not even an argument to be made. Everyone has to have, I mean, heck, to get a job, you have to show them proof of who you are, so they can run a background check or do these things. People have IDs. It's just a foolish argument. And what they're really saying is we want people who aren't supposed to be voting to be able to vote. It's exactly what they're saying in a backward manner.
Oh, absolutely so. I mean, That's how come they have allowed millions and millions to enter in here. And it's funny, because Kamala's taken the position lately where she's like, oh, I can't do anything. Just like Joe was going, oh, I can't do anything. But amazingly enough, you can do an executive order forgiving the debt, student loan debt for how many billions of dollars just with a wave of a pen. But you can't do anything about the border. I don't think that's the case. But here's one last clip from Kamala talking about undocumented workers.
Being an undocumented immigrant is not a crime. I know what a crime looks like. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. 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 An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal.
Well, I would believe an undocumented immigrant is a criminal. It's just that simple. For Kamala to be a former prosecutor for the state of California that went after everyone smoking weed, for her to say that, they're not criminals, she's borderline insane.
Well, here's the thing. They don't really want anything to be a crime. I was thinking about this the other day. I was listening to a show and I was just so in my own head disagreeing with people that were talking about. It was about in D.C. where they ripped the American flag down and burned it. And everyone was like, "Well, there's nothing you can do about that." The Supreme Court has said that you have a right to burn the flag, and you know what? That is true, Hal. But you know what is also true? They had to trespass onto government property to get that flag off of that pole. That's a crime. They had to steal that flag, which was purchased with taxpayer money. That is also a crime. Then they destructed government property when they set it aflame. Those are 3 crimes right there that if anyone gave a rip, could have put those people in the criminal justice system where they belong. When you just keep saying nothing is a crime, and even if you do commit a quote unquote crime, you get out on cash, on bail for free to be free to commit more crime. It just seems like the word crime just has no meaning anymore. There's just a bunch of people out there that are doing whatever they want, and there are no repercussions. And until that gets straightened up and we start calling crimes, and people that commit crime criminals, we're stuck in a loop that is just unbelievably bad.
Yeah, I would agree. But, I watched that the other week in D.C. and was just horrified because I'm not sure if the people that provide security, whether it be police or it may have been some security guards at some of the places that this occurred at, were overwhelmed. But the fact that they just stood back and watched that happen, it just hurt my very soul to think that people that hate the United States so much are here taking advantage of everything we have to offer and not grateful at all for it.
Well, I look at it very differently from you, Hal. Very, very differently. The people that truly hate this country are the people that are telling these officers and these federal agents and these federal marshals not to do something. That is where the real evil is. The real evil is at the top when they are told, do not interfere with these quote unquote protesters, regardless of what they do. Then, everyone's accountable to somebody. And if you've been told by your superiors to not arrest these folks, well, then you don't arrest them. If you've been told to let them do what they want, well, you're going to let them do what they want because that's what you've been told to do. And the people that truly hate this country are the ones giving those orders, and those seem to me to be the people in charge.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, looking at Kamala's plan again, we talked about the positions on pricing, but she's also offering a $25,000 subsidy for first-time home buyers, a tax credit for the first year of your child's life in the amount of $6,000. And let's see, raising the child tax credit from $2,000 to $3,000. That's reasonable, but all these changes amount to great debt. The Committee for Responsible Federal Budget has looked into her plan already, and they believe just the change of the tax credit from $2,000 to $3,000 would cost roughly $1.1 trillion over 10 years. So again, their fiscal policy is print money, and it's just going to come down to money that has no value. Essentially, a dollar is going to become the new peso. Yeah, and I think probably once the Democrats get what they want, if they're successful in November, we might even see some type of unified North America / South American currency, like the European Union did with the euro, because essentially we would just be one big massive land over here, believing in communism and giving away everything. So the dollar's not going to mean much. They might as well just come out with something else, and before you know it, they're putting a chip in you, and that's how you pay. You're not going to trade coins or paper or anything like that, but they'll be able to track every last thing you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got a kind of mixed emotions on the child tax credit, because I do think we have a serious problem in population and replacing people in the United States that are passing away. The birth rates are down. If that would help to spur that, I think in the long run that would help things. But I don't disagree with you on the devaluing of the dollar, and I think that we have more than a revenue problem coming in. We have a spending problem going out. I think if this country were run properly, and that would take an unbelievable force, but if it could be done, I think people would find that the revenues that we're bringing in should be more than enough to pay for all of our bills. But until you can get a handle on the spending, and I don't think we'll ever get a handle on the debt, I think we're just going to keep spinning our wheels like you have pointed out. I mean, it's just the dollar is just going to keep decreasing in value until, like you said, it's a peso.
Yeah, the spending is definitely a problem. I saw a statistic the other day stating the annual interest payment on our debt is now greater than what we're spending on defense, which just brings up another thing that we could make a whole nother show about, and that's defense spending, because where we are helping Ukraine oppose Russia, and we have helped Israel in the past with Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah, those missiles aren't cheap. I mean, it's great to see them knock an Iranian drone out of the air that they bought from North Korea, but that's probably a $10,000 drone being shot down by a $2 million missile.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It's real quick to see how fast, things are vanishing. And, in fact, this week I saw some discussions where some upper level GOP people are unhappy with JD Vance because of his prior service in the Marine Corps. He is focused a little bit on defense spending, and it looks like there's some GOP friends or fans with their money deep in pockets that have invested in such a way where they want things to keep going to Ukraine and buying missiles to shoot down Iranian things instead of trying to quail those things. So much to talk about, so little time, Aaron Luck. Any closing thoughts today, buddy?
No. I mean, only closing thought I have is we've been through some hard times in the past, and both in personal life and in the United States of America, and I don't think there's anything that we can't get accomplished. I just really hope that we, one way or the other, could come together and try to figure this out. Because if not, I think we're all going to be in trouble, and that's going to be unfortunate for everybody. And it's time for us to, get some things done and start moving in a positive, right direction.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Years ago, I was in D.C. and I remember going to Arlington and looking at all those headstones of all the people that gave that greatest sacrifice to make America as great as she was. And we need to get back to there for those people, for our future. I mean, we have children, we have grandchildren. They need to enjoy the America we knew as youngsters, one where the country's strong, the economy's strong. You're encouraged by hard work, and that hard work's going to pay off. We just need to get back to that spot. Well, folks, we're going to wrap up for today. And again, we appreciate your patience and your listening. We would encourage you to give us a like, give us a follow. We'll be able to notify you when we come out with our next episode. We do plan on doing that more often. My apologies for the little break we had to take, but we're going to get back on track. And we look forward to sharing with you news that you may miss during your busy week. And the other thing is, what is a conservative news source nowadays? People would argue that it's Fox News, but, maybe not necessarily anymore. So we're just going to try to bring you the truth and our opinions as we see them, and just join us and come along. And we look forward to bringing you this information, hopefully each week. Y'all take care.